The ball held at the Duke and Duchess of Blackmore's London townhouse to herald in the year of 1815 was widely regarded as the most prestigious event of the year. Whilst the lingering euphoria of Napoleon's exile to the Isle of Elba undoubtedly contributed to the festive atmosphere, the ball's success was in no small part due to the popularity and standing within the ton of Nicholas Sinclair and his beautiful though unconventional wife Grace. The fact that the Duchess was the daughter of a local vicar appeared to have been forgotten, or, if not forgotten, certainly disregarded. Indeed, it was widely agreed that Her Grace was looking simply radiant, as were those of her equally unconventional sisters who were present. And if many of the gentlemen attending sported anxious frowns concerning the economic plight of Great Britain in the aftermath of the 23-year war in Europe, well, such cares and considerations were easily drowned in a few glasses of the Duke's most excellent port. It had to be said that whilst the Duchess of Blackmore's humble origins were generally overlooked, the presence of her father at events such as these, or rather his penchant for generating unfortunate incidents, such as the one involving Queen Charlotte and the duck pond, was naturally of some concern to the rest of the family. However, exile to the small, delightful drawing-room along with Malcolm, the Duke's long-standing and similarly outspoken valet, was in no way seen as a slight by the Reverend. In truth, Augustus Shackleford shouldn't really have been in London at all, and was entirely delighted to be foregoing the tedious and stultifying conversation enjoyed by polite society, especially as the table was positively groaning under the weight of a delicious array of the cook's tempting tarts and pastries, and the jug of port sitting tantalizingly on the sideboard was entirely up to his son-in-law's usual standards. Naturally, Percy Noon, the Reverend's long-suffering curate, was also present, as were the two younger Shacklefords, Prudence and Anthony. Both, much to their older sister's relief, had absolutely no desire to take part in the festivities. Indeed, Prudence had declared that she'd rather have her toenails removed with red-hot pincers. And then, of course, there was the Reverend's foxhound, Freddie, who was perfectly content lying under the table, ready to demolish any crumbs that happened to fall his way. All three men were in a particularly jocular mood as the clock approached midnight, and Reverend Shackleford was persuaded that this was possibly the best New Year's Eve he'd ever spent. For one thing, he hadn't seen Agnes, his wife, since well before supper, and was confident she would be happily discussing with all the other tabbies her latest obsession with yellow fever for hours yet. His only daughter, of marriageable age, as yet unwed, was Chastity, and he wasn't about to do anything that might throw a rub in the way of Grace's plans to bring the chit out. So, all in all, he was happy to make himself scarce until he was required to give his blessing to whoever was unfortunate enough to land himself with the totty-headed baggage.
The totty-headed baggage, in question, was currently being escorted onto the dance floor by the Viscount Trebworthy. Indeed, her father would have been ecstatic, considering the young man was heir to dukedom, and as rich as Croesus to boot. Unfortunately, he was also tall and skinny, with breath like an open privy. In truth, Chastity was not entirely convinced she was actually going to survive the cotillion. Determinedly, she fixed her gaze on his bony chest and endeavoured to breathe through her mouth. Hopefully he would think her completely devoid of any personality and seek to be rid of her as soon as they vacated the dance floor. Regrettably, that proved not to be the case, and in desperation, pleading a sudden excessive thirst, Chastity sent the Viscount off in search of a glass of water, then promptly made herself scarce, finally collapsing onto a chair hidden in a quiet corner.